My name is Shub. I'm a Schulich Leader Scholar studying biomedical sciences and a member at STEM Fellowship. And you're listening to STEM Fellows, a monthly podcast where I have conversations with prominent STEM leaders to spark big ideas. Hello friends, welcome to another episode of STEM Fellows. This month, I'm absolutely pumped to have Helen Huang on the show. Helen is one of many Canadian students studying medicine at the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland and plans to pursue an internal medicine residency in Canada. Her avid interest in the cross sections of AI and healthcare treatment has propelled her to self-teach coding languages and become a researcher in the Epigenetic of Gastro-Intestinal Disease Research Group. Helen is also hoping to create a platform called Diaries of an IMG to raise awareness for medical students' mental health because of the pandemic. Helen, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on this show, Shub.
Yeah, for sure. I guess we can get right into it. Would you mind just, telling us a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and I guess what brought you to where you are today? And I always like to provide that context to everybody listening, just because it sets the foundation for everything we'll talk about later. So yeah, feel free to go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. So as everyone knows, my name is Helen Huang. I actually was born and raised in Abbotsford, Canada. Both my parents are South Korean. They immigrated at a young age just to provide me better educational opportunities. And it really did work out. But I think when I was growing up in Abbotsford, it's a very small town and I had really big dreams. So one of the things that I did and I promised myself to do was to travel and live in a country abroad away from Canada because I wanted to explore the world. And so as a result of that, upon graduation from high school, I joined the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland to study medicine. And as Shub said, to hopefully match back to either Canada, the States, wherever my path takes me, to an internal medicine residency. Ever since I joined RCSI, I think it's been a wonderful experience. There's been a lot of opportunities for me to get involved in research. And quite particularly, I've become very interested in the future of precision medicine and molecular medicine, because there's many genetic conditions that do plague our everyday lives, and even with our closest members. So for me to do research on that, to figure out if there's any way to reverse that, is truly astounding. And so that's the current route that I'm doing, and the current, projects that I'm undertaking. I also do think because of the pandemic, I've been focusing a lot about figuring out how to maximize resources for mental health. And so that's currently where I'm at. Other than traveling, exploring the world.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. I'm excited to talk about your experiences at the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, and I guess what led up to that, from deciding that you wanted to pursue a route in medicine. So maybe would you mind just telling us a little bit about your undergraduate education? Like did you even do an undergrad, or did you directly just apply to medicine afterwards after you finished high school?
Yeah, so for international medical school, I think in Ireland and in the UK, there's different requirements, but there's a few programs you can choose to take. So for the 6-year and the 6-year medicine program, it's direct high school entry. So the only thing I submitted was my high school grades, my personal statements, reference letters, etc. And they placed me into the 6-year. But there's an option to do 5-year medicine if you went to an AP school or you had an IB school and you met the requirements. So I didn't go to an AP school. I did take biology and chemistry AP. I just didn't take physics or calculus AP, which was one of the other requirements. So based off that, you're placed in the 5-year program. But if someone had a bachelor's degree, they would do the graduate entry medicine program if they took the MCAT.
And so I guess how many years would that be then?
For me, for graduate entry medicine, it's 4 years. For me, it's 6, and I'm currently in my 3rd year at RCSI.
Okay, 3rd year. Okay. But yeah, that's incredible. Thanks for sharing that. So yeah, this is a big question, but like, why medicine? Did you? I always ask this. Like, I had a previous guest on the show. He's pursuing medicine at U of T. So. Yeah, did you always know that something like medicine was something that you were passionate about and wanted to pursue, or was there like something that happened specifically in your life that was like a final moment, like, yes, I want to do medicine?
I think some people experience epiphanies, right? But I think for me personally, it was more of a revelation because I was actually really torn between studying law and studying medicine. The reason why was because in high school, I was part of a debate academy, a debate and public speaking academy, which sent Canadian teams to the States. So for instance, like Ivy League university tournaments to debate on certain topics of the month. I really enjoyed that. I think I got a really big exposure about politics, how we create argumentation, ultimately leading me to think that law might have been a viable career option for me. But on the other hand, I think when I was younger, there was a plethora of conditions that plagued my family. So I think on my mom's side, there's a genetic predisposition to cancer. My dad's side, there's a lot of cardiovascular disease and diabetes. Personally, for me, I was born with knock knee, so I had to undergo a major surgery when I was younger. I think because of that, there were so many medical conditions that made me wonder, why does this happen and what can I do about it? So that's why I was kind of torn. But I realized as I was in my last year of high school that there's a very big difference between knowing something that you want to do for your life or as a hobby. And I realized that for me, debate and public speaking was more of a hobby. I rather enjoyed coaching rather than actually debating. I liked teaching my students, similar to how I would educate my patients in the future. And I think because with all that coupled with the volunteer I did at a family medicine clinic as well too, kind of realized that I really more like having a close bonded relationship with my patients, figuring out what's wrong, making a personalized plan, as opposed to, let's say, in law, I would reckon just tackling big issues all at once. I'd rather focus on individual people, so that's kind of how I chose medicine. But to this day, still kind of remnants about my debate. Debate. I really miss public speaking and debate, but it's a hobby. It comes once in a lifetime, and I don't regret it.
Yeah, that's a really incredible story and really admiring. I guess just what led up to that. So yeah, thanks for sharing that as well. So why, like you said, like you were in your final year of high school, you're like, maybe debate was kind of like a hobby, medicine was something that you more wanted to do. So what made you decide to apply to the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland instead of like just doing like like what people traditionally do when they're going to school in Canada, like doing an undergrad degree and then applying to medicine afterwards? Was it just like it would be like more fast tracked, faster, you'd be able to finish there? Or was there like a different reason for that?
I think the fast track reason is a very common reason. I would say that there is an aspect where I would think that going to a school abroad would give that benefit. But one thing I realized though is that if that's people's main motivation to study abroad, it's really difficult to get through, because after graduation, it's much harder for us to go back to our respective countries and practice. And I have so much, really kudos to the Canadian medical graduates that went through the lengthy process of studying a bachelor's degree, doing the MCAT, and then going through the competitive process. Really, it's just truly astonishing. I just thought for me, I really wanted to have a cultural exposure to different people. I realized that going abroad, I met people all around the world. I think as a result of me matriculating into RCSI, I have friends and peers from each country, each continent. And it's just truly amazing that it's such a huge international community. And that's kind of the exposure that I really wanted. I think going into RCSI gave that to me, in addition to early clinical exposure, because I think since it's my third year, this is my last year of lectures and, studying for off paper. It's now next year would be going into hospital. So I think the early patient exposure was something I wanted to indulge in, as opposed to perhaps doing a bachelor's degree, not necessarily knowing if I am interested in that particular field, and then going into medical school. I kind of wanted to have a little dip in the pool, figure out what medicine is about, understanding that it's very difficult for international medical graduates to match back. I think the benefits for me still, though, however, outweighed the it's a cost benefit analysis.
Getting into economics, yeah. No,
Yeah.
just expanding on what you were talking about, I guess a little bit about your experiences at RCSI. Would you mind just expanding on that? Like you said, you're going into your third year, and
Mm.
yeah, how has it been for you so far? Like how you said it's like an astounding community of scholars. So
Mhm.
like, would you mind just sharing a little bit more about like your experiences there so far?
Yeah, sure. So I think for RCSI, I think the structure is very different from public universities in Canada. I know a lot of people, they normally pick their courses, but for RCSI in particular, you're given set courses. So it's a very small knit community of around, let's say, 300 people. I know in my first year, there was only like 150 because obviously with the 5-year program coming in, as we moved into in the next year, there's more people coming in. And so there's constantly new people that we're meeting each year. And I thought that with this small community, we get the same modules. So we see each other all the time. I think that creates a very close support group that
Mhm.
inevitably became very important in this COVID pandemic. I think the pandemic has impacted the way that international medical graduates and me have studied. It's a big jump. It was already a big jump between high school to medical school, having to study and understand such a large volume of material in a short period of time. Coupling with the pandemic, everything going online, it was truly difficult. All my peers were having a lot of trouble. Some people couldn't even come to Ireland, so we weren't able to go into school. I think RCSI, in our anatomy year, which was last year, we were given the option to go into school because obviously that was the year we had the ability to dissect cadavers and look into the actual anatomy of real humans. Obviously with the pandemic we couldn't, but we still had the option. So I think that was very unique. It was a very big risk, but I think it really enriched my education, and a lot of other people would also agree with me. This year,
Mhm.
however, it's half online, half in person, but we're learning pathology now. So each system's pathology, the types of diseases. So I think it's really interesting. It all builds up from the basic sciences to anatomy to understanding disease processes and then applications to hospital and clinicals.
Okay. And so would you say that the I guess structure of the education that you're getting there is similar to what you'd get at medical schools here in Canada? Because medical
Mm,
schools here, they're usually like, do you know how long of a program they are? Is it 3, 4 years?
4 years.
4 years. So how come there's 2 more years there? Like, do you just learn content at a slower pace, or do you guys get
Mm.
more of something?
That's a very interesting question that I wouldn't have the best shot at, especially because I'm not 100% sure how the Canadian medical school curriculum works.
Mhm.
What I do know is that the reason why there's an extra 2-ish years is because that kind of condenses the medical aspects of a bachelor's degree. So for instance, in my first year, in foundation year, as they call it,
Mhm.
we learned about, basically what a student that did biology AP or chemistry AP would learn. So the
Oh, I see.
basic biomoleculars, the pharmaceuticals, the reactions. And then
Mhm.
we would have modules that would complement that. So we would learn about everything cardiorespiratory and then everything musculoskeletal, a nervous system, just a little, dip into the pool. And then anatomy, I think we just learn head to toe everything about the human body.
Right.
I think it's very dense because they did condense it. Most of the time it's a 4-year bachelor, 4-year medical school. There's a lot more time within that frame. But yeah, I think that's the best way I could explain that.
Got you. Okay. So what would you say your favorite organ system is? Like, do you have a
Um,
particular?
the heart is fascinating. I think the heart and the brain, because one thing that I realized is that without the heart, nothing could work. I think the energy, the blood systems are they're so intricate. It's
Intricate,
very
yeah.
difficult to study, but I felt as if the the hemodynamics were very interesting. That continuously keeps us alive. And I think the brain, I think everyone would agree with me that the nervous system, though is very tricky to learn, it's very interesting to see the different types of nerves that causes me talking right now, you blinking, us communicating and understanding, comprehending speech. I think it's just beautiful. I think it's just...
No, it's interesting you that the heart and the mind, because it's like a debate between the two, right? Like which one is more superior. So you pick one stance and you stick with it. So I found it interesting that you said it's both of them, because not a lot of people say that. They just pick one or the other.
Yeah, I have a hard time picking one of my favorites because honestly, I just like a lot of things. But yeah, I think in terms of that debate, I personally lean on the side that there's a state called like vegetation. That's when I think that's when like the brain, like this humans basically they just can't function, right? Because the brain's not working. So in a sense, the brain does control all of our motor systems, our, us as a human. But I think actual death is pronounced when the heart stops flowing. So it's a debate, we'll never know. But it's both of them work intertwined. They're both very important parts of the body.
Yeah, maybe when you're coaching next, you can set up a debate that is heart versus minds, and you can
I was considering.
Just give you a debate idea. Okay, getting back into it. Can you explain the application process for applying to medicine, like internationally? Like you said, it's different, right? It's not the same as Canadian medical schools. Like you don't have to write the MCAT, but you said you still have to submit, like, I guess, your transcript, get reference letters, and write a personal statement. So is there anything else that encompasses that process?
Yeah, so I actually applied to a few Canadian schools. I think most notably I applied to Queen's. That was I kind of have a battle between first choices of RCSI and Queen's University.
Okay.
I think it's different because I didn't apply to the States. I know the States have interviews. RCSI also had an interview. So what happened was we had to submit our transcripts from grade 10 all the way to, I think, semester 1 of grade 12 if you wanted to do the early applications.
Gotcha.
You got 2 recommendations from either one of them has to be a science professor or of some sort, like, medical professional. The other can be just someone that knows you really well. So, I got one from my principal. He ran the leadership program, and I was really closely knit with him when we were working on school projects. So I asked him. And then we had to write a personal statement about detailing why we wanted to do medicine and why RCSI was fit for us. And then I think a few test scores we had to submit. I think AP, I just did AP just in case, if the 5-year program wanted, it was an option for me. And then I think after that, we just waited, and then we got an interview. And back then the interview was in person. I think now it's online or over the phone. Right. After the interview, it's around 30 minutes, and then they get back to you within due time. I applied to 2 Irish schools. I applied to University College Dublin and RCSI, and I did interviews for both, and they're quite interesting, needless to say.
That's awesome. So, like, what's the application timeline looking like? So when did you apply? When did you hear back?
So I think for me, since I was such a keen starter, I started writing my application in August. But okay. And so
August, that was August of your grade 11 year in high school?
Yeah, August of my just finishing grade 11, going into grade 12 year.
Going to grade 12. Okay, so like that summer.
So incoming grade 12.
Gotcha.
Yeah, okay. So of that August, I think it was August 2018. I started writing my application September 2018. Just getting all the references, the personal statements. And then I think the applications started opening on November 2018-ish. The first cycle was due in January 2019. So had to get everything in by then. But there's also secondary cycles, so you can also apply around March time, and then you would be able to get in or hear back from them by June. I just wanted to get a head start, so I did my interviews then in February. I was invited for an interview, and then I heard back around in March, I think.
Okay, and then you matriculated, I guess, in that fall, like September or something?
Yes, and then I think we had to pay a deposit to keep our spot. There's quite a lot of, it was quite competitive. So in order to make sure that, because we got offers from different Irish universities at that time,
Hmm.
because we used a portal. It's like similar to Common Application in the States. It's called Atlantic Bridge for Canadians. So yeah, that's kind of how the application process went.
Got you. Okay. And just quickly going back to a particular part of the application process,
Mhm.
personal statements. I know those are a big thing that a lot of students like stress over. So was just wondering if you, I guess, had any advice writing those, like maybe something that you think might have worked for
Mhm.
you.
Yeah, it was I think a personal statement is like very synonymous to dissecting your own brain. You have to, I think one of the best advices that I could give to people is to really write down all the experiences that they've encountered, the people they've encountered, the what they've learned in life, what has motivated them to become who they are, and dissect it little by little. Why is this important to me? What did I learn from this? It's really a mind map. Actually, when I did my personal statement, I wrote a huge mind map that detailed, what I learned from volunteering at this pharmacy, what I gained as a future healthcare professional from observerships in my family medicine clinic, and even from debate too. What did I learn from teaching so many students?
Mm.
I think the best way to do a personal statement is to be authentic, be true to yourself, don't sugarcoat, and to really, really have some time for yourself to think for yourself and, figure out who you really are. I know it sounds very cliche, but that's how I did it, and it worked for me. So,
No, I really think that's good advice. And I actually just finished writing a personal statement this morning for
oh,
a
really?
program that I'm applying to at the U of
Oh,
C.
wow.
So I definitely agree with everything that you said. I definitely agree with just writing down everything that you've done like in the past, and
Mhm.
uh, I guess creating like a docs or something and just going through them and see how everything fits together like a puzzle piece, and
Right.
trying to find
Yeah.
like a story, right? Don't just
Yeah.
like list experiences, actually
Mhm.
reflect on them and relate them to, I guess, what you want to do in the future.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's actually a very good point. I completely forgot to mention that this entire thing that you need one theme because
Yeah,
you're
that
right in the
ties
sense
everything
that
together.
yeah, exactly. Everything needs to kind of tie in together. So I think just if anyone is writing any medical school personal statements, I'll give you an example of mine. So basically, for me, I wrote about my brother. He had a string of mental health conditions, and he was only at that time he was only 8. So I talked about how seeing my brother go through these social settings with a different mindset and knowing that he's different from other people, how I used my experiences to fully understand what it's like to go through that, what it's like to help someone like that, and
Hmm.
how I applied that back to my own personal home. And I think it doesn't have to be just from a person. It doesn't have to be someone close. It can be from an experience you personally dealt with. I know one of my friends wrote a personal statement about a car accident, how she learned from that, the paramedics, how she interacted with them. I think there's definitely something that you can write about because everyone's unique. So just think of your own unique story. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to, take it from someone else and make it your
Right.
own,
Yeah.
basically.
So, in just in that regards, what would you say to people who are like, because
Mm.
um, like pre-med, there's a lot of things that people do similarly. Like they volunteer at the hospital, they do this, etc., etc. And so people have similar experiences. So
Mhm.
how can you make those experiences unique to you instead of just, I guess, listing that, right? Because like,
Mm.
what if you don't have a particularly like different or unique experience? How can you make those like maybe volunteering at the hospital just unique to yourself? Would it just be, would you say like just reflecting on how it relates to you? Maybe that's what would make it unique.
Yeah, I think the best way to make it unique is to reflect on what you've learned from that because because I think one thing that my parents told me
Hmm.
was 10 people could be in the same room learning from the same doctor. All of them could have learned different things. They went home and they synthesized different parts of what the doctor said. So that's kind of the same thing with these experiences, you know. If you're volunteering at a hospital, you meet different people, you have different interactions. No one has the same, you know, conversation with the same woman that you're treating. So that's one that I think that's a very good point, Shub, that, you know, it's very unique to your experiences and what you take away from it. But I think one thing that I realized for what distinguishes medical students, it's not necessarily academics. It has to do with the involvement even outside of medicine, because many people in medical school will have very similar experiences, as you said. But what sets them apart is what they've been doing that's not necessarily medicine related, but they're super passionate about. So there's this one girl in RCSI, I know that she's very passionate in rowing. And I know she went to a really, really big competition in France and she got a medal for that while she's doing a full-time medical school degree. So there's just different things that people are doing to fulfill their life. You know, no one should drop their passion because, you know, medical school is difficult, but you should never drop your passion for it. I think that's one thing I wish I didn't for instruments, you know, because I left all my instruments at home. I didn't think I'd have the time, but now I think because of the pandemic, I would have had a lot of time to keep practicing. So
what instruments do you play?
When I was younger, I used to play the piano, violin. I was part of the marching band, so I did the clarinet and trumpet. But ultimately, I settled on the alto saxophone because I really liked how you could play classical music, but you could also jazz it up a little bit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I haven't played in around like 3 years. I think I just haven't had the time, really.
Yeah, no, music is something I really miss as well, because I did it all throughout high school. I played the cello all throughout, and I did a bit of, I guess, trumpet.
Wow.
So that was an experience of itself. And I really wish I could have continued it even like into university, but I don't know, it's just been hard, like with the pandemic, like you can't really play that in person. And maybe
and the cello's really big as well too. It's kind of hard to carry around, right? Yeah.
Big. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I really want to get one for myself sometime in the future. So don't know when that will be, but one day I'll buy one for myself.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah. No, good stuff. Hey, I was going to ask you, right? Interviews. You said you also had to do an interview at, I guess, to get into RCSI. So you told me that you were extremely involved with speech and debate in high school, and I know that must have definitely helped you with your interview process, just articulating like those arguments and those points. So any tips, advice for answering frequently asked questions during, I guess, medical school interviews? Because I'm assuming it would be the same, similar questions, at least to Canadian medical schools, that they'd ask.
Yeah, so man, the interviews were such a long time ago. I'm still trying to recollect what really went down, because I've always been trying to wonder why they chose me, you know. I think for the interviews, the only question that you should really prepare is who you are, because that's the first question they always ask. They always ask you, can you please tell me a little bit about yourself? And you shouldn't write it word to word so you memorize it, because they obviously don't want you to sound robotic. A lot of the interviewers told me when I walked in, I was very nervous. You know, I've done a lot of interviews for MUN conference, Model United Nations.
Oh, you did one?
Yeah, I did Model United Nations. Oh man, Model United Nations was incredible.
It was incredible.
I just wish I could keep doing that. I think we have a club at RCSI, but I don't think we've done anything huge at this point. I think next year, hopefully, we can do something big. But regardless, anyways, I did a lot of interviews for MUN. I did a lot for, like, you know, organizations and volunteer work. I was just very nervous because I felt like my future was on the line here. And I think the one thing that the interviewer told me that I take away to this day is they're never here to penalize you. They're here to figure out who you are and have a conversation with you. And that made me realize how humanized medicine is. They want to see you as a person. They don't want to see your accomplishments. They don't want to see that, you know, you're 100% top. They want to see what you've been doing in the community, and if you're a person that a patient would love to confide with. So I think for me, the biggest tips I would give is to definitely write out some of the experiences that you really want to talk about that you think adds value to your application. Perhaps make a little mental note about answering the question why you want to go into medical school. And, you know, as the answer I gave previously, you can talk about how if yours was an epiphany, maybe like you were at some place at some time, and then you realize I want to do medicine, or if it's a revelation of the exposures you've had in your life, my family members, my friends, the world in itself, like I see all this happening.
Right.
It depends on you, really. It really depends on your story. But I think the biggest advice, just don't fret, because just be yourself. Don't make it sound forced. It's not like you're trying to sell yourself out. You're just having a conversation with them.
No, thank you for sharing that very important message. I know that's gonna, I guess, help a lot of people as they're preparing for their interview.
Yeah, I hope so.
Sure. And just another point regarding, I guess, all the speech and debate that you're doing.
Yes.
Did you have any advice in just general for public speaking as a whole? Because it's so central to everything that we do in life, and like just our everyday, like day-to-day life, right? Like public speaking, like you're talking to other people, maybe at school you're asking like a professor a question or you're answering something. So can you maybe like highlight what you've learned from your experiences with speech and debate and what you've taken away from them all?
Sure. Let me think. So I think for one of the biggest things that I've learned from debate and public speaking was confidence changes how you present yourself to people. Because I realized that one of the reasons why so for me, English was my first language, but I grew up in a household where we also spoke Korean, and that really made it confusing for me. And my development for English was very slow. So I think by the time I was around grade 4, I was still not able to, speak English. I mean, now I can, but that's besides the point. I enrolled in debate and public speaking primarily because I had a tic while I was talking. I think because of nervousness or due to, I'm not too sure why. But regardless, all my friends that I've met at debate and public speaking, they came in feeling, very timid. They're very timid people. They weren't very outspoken, and they're worried about formulating their own opinions and thinking for themselves. But debate and public speaking does just that. With the amount of exposure you get, the amount of debates you do, the amount of times that we've been put under pressure in front of people, having to deliver a speech, and you're just shaking because you're just scared. I think all those exposures help us overcome that. So we're used to talking in front of audiences. We're used to, creating a speech on the spot. So I think the biggest thing I took away from debate and public speaking was that it builds confidence. Putting yourself outside the box and outside your comfort zone really builds your confidence.
I completely agree with that as well, because when I was younger, I was really timid as well. And I guess I wasn't the best public speaker. I remember back in like back in grade 8 or something, I was running for, I guess, my class representative for student council. And as I was like giving a speech in front of class, like I was about to like collapse, like my legs were shaking and like I feel the sweat dripping down my like armpits. Like, I don't know how I got through that speech and delivered it, but yeah, that was scary. But like just every experience thereafter, like just the many times I was like forced to give a speech or something to like a group of audience, every time I felt it getting better and better, like my ability to, I guess, deliver a speech or share something with an audience. And so that's why I completely agreed with your point about just putting yourself out there again and again, and it'll get better.
Yeah, because, actually, that gave me that actually reminded me of a very important experience as well too that I learned. You're right in a sense that, like, everyone, even both of us, we're speaking to you in a podcast, and we used to be people that were super scared to speak in front of anyone. I think the biggest memory I have was, I remember I was like 15 or 14, 15. I'm not too sure. I just joined debate, fresh into debate. There was a topic, I think it was about reparations to African Americans in the US. My first tournament, I had no idea what I was doing. I was really young. I went into my round. They were all tall and they knew what they're doing. And I freaked out. And normally debate rounds, there's 6 debate rounds in prelims. I didn't win a single one. And that really devastated me. but I
Right.
never realized that was the catalyst point of me learning from my mistakes. And that's the reason why I think I've been doing debate for 4 years, going to these tournaments, getting accolades, because you learn from your mistakes, no one,
Exactly.
I think the best way to learn isn't from success, it's really from your failures and learning how to pick yourself up.
That is so very true. I had a very similar Keystone experience. You're talking about Model UN, and
Yes.
yeah, I did that all throughout high school. Like I started back in grade
Oh,
9.
really?
I didn't want to do it, but like I was forced to by one of my, I guess, older peers, or I guess
Mhm.
friends. So yeah,
Yeah.
he forced me to come to a meeting. He forced me to sign up to this conference that the University of Alberta runs every year.
Mhm.
And like back in grade 9, that was the first year I did it. Like I don't think I said one word. Like, you know how the conferences are run, like you put up your
Yeah.
placard and everything. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, I didn't put up my placard. It was just like during the unmoderated caucuses, I'd talk to people, and that was like if they came to me. So yeah, I was like
Mm.
very shy. And so I only said like, I was forced to say something. So I prepared something like in advance in case I was like picked on or
Yeah.
something. And so one of my friends
Yeah.
from high school, they gave up their time, like as a joke, right? They just gave up like they raised their placard,
Yeah,
and
they
like
give their
I
time to you, right?
gave to me, and
Oh
so I
my
had to
gosh.
say something. Like I can't just like, so I had to get up and say something. So I just did that. Like I stumbled my way through it, and by the end of it, like you said, I didn't win like any of the accolades or awards.
Yeah.
Like I saw other people winning them. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how they do it, right? And
Yes.
so
Yes.
I slowly worked on it, and grade 9, grade 10, didn't win anything in grade 10 as well, but I think I built more confidence around that. And then grade
Mhm.
11 and 12, like 11, um, I prepped a lot ahead of time, and I got myself mentally prepared.
Mhm.
And I ended up winning like outstanding delegates back. Like I did my debate
Oh,
in the
wow.
World Health Organization, like
Oh,
that committee.
really?
Yeah, yeah. Like that was
What
my
was your
go-to. Yeah.
what was your topic? Because I actually my last MUN conference I did World Health Organization as well too. That's my
Okay.
go-to as well.
Oh, no way, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So my topic in grade 12 was, um, I'll tell you grade 11 because I remember that. It was universal
Mhm.
health coverage and
Oh.
something else. I can't believe I'm forgetting it. And then grade 12 was organ trade and sex trafficking. And
Oh.
grade 11, the other one was the opioid crisis.
Oh,
So
those are
opioid
good
crisis
topics.
and universal health coverage. And for
Mm.
grade 12, it was organ trade and trafficking and sex trafficking.
Oh, those are very interesting topics. Kind of
Yeah,
wish we
yeah.
did our topic was on that. That'd be very interesting to
What
talk about,
was your
especially
guys'
the
topic on?
I think for ours was about um healthcare in conflict zones. So we
Okay.
talked a lot about the Afghanistan war. We talked a lot about Yemen because Yemen is
Right.
currently in a really bad state. And I think the second one was about rare diseases. So or not rare diseases. I think maybe tropical diseases, because there's quite a lot in the Africas that we
Got you.
had to talk about. So one of them was the Ebola outbreak, and
Oh,
so we're just trying to, yeah. So it was very difficult because there's a lot of countries that had differing views about how to handle the outbreaks, and so yeah, I think
yeah.
yeah, those are very
No, yeah,
those are
that's what I love about MUN, right? Because it's not just speech and debate. It's like a bigger issue. Like you're discussing
yeah,
like huge
exactly,
issues like that are pertinent and prevalent to society. So
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
what
I really
I. Mhm.
Sorry, no, yeah, that's what I was gonna mention as well. So, a model United Nations enables a lot more discussion. There's no right or wrong. It's really just a discussion of like what's the best solution, really,
Exactly.
considering that there's some countries that have very opposing views.
No, no, I agree. What country were you when you did it? Most
Oh,
recently.
I'm not too sure. I know for MUN conferences, I always do it with one of my friends. She was my previous debate partner.
Okay.
I think I think I was India, and she was.
No way. I did India back in grade 11.
Oh, really?
Very similar experience.
To be honest, I really wanted to do Canada, but I don't think it was I applied last minute, so I don't think it
Oh,
was there at the time. But I think my friend did the United Kingdom, I think. And I told her, you have to take a country that has really big influence, because I don't know if everyone likes India. And we both just made blocks. It was really nice though, because we both got awards. I think she got outstanding, and then I got best. So it was just kind of weird. Like it was just 2 blocks at the same, it's just, yeah, but it was
congratulations.
Really fun.
That's awesome.
Thank you. It was really fun.
I know I miss mine. I wish I could continue that.
Yeah, me too.
But I think, I guess that's a good place to put a pause for interviews. I think we covered a lot with that. So thanks for sharing all of your experiences.
Yeah, no worries.
For sure. So just a few more things I want to touch on. I guess one of them was research. I know that you touched on it earlier. You're really passionate about research, and you've already pursued like several projects related to that. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about how you got into research and sharing a little bit about your projects?
Yeah, so I think I would start off by advice to younger people that are trying to get into research. It doesn't matter if you do the big shot, research programs like the ones, MD Anderson Cancer Center, or like Sick Kids Hospital, just start small and then work up. Because I feel like for me, I had no research background in high school, and I didn't even consider doing research in university. But around in my first year, I think I cold emailed a lot of professors in the Lower Mainlands and in Toronto. There wasn't any luck, because I feel like as a first year medical student that didn't have any prior research experience, there weren't many people that were willing to take me on. So despite that, I utilized LinkedIn a lot. And I think that was because ever since the pandemic had hit, that was the first time I had to go back home. So this was around, I think, March of 2020. And through LinkedIn, I was able to find a few opportunities. Like, for instance, there's like a few like research journal clubs that were going on online. There were some fellowship programs from I think one of them was Foundation of International Relief in Medicine for Children, so FIMRIC. I think I did those. And from those, I gained a little bit of research experience. But with the free time that I had, I realized that there was a lot of online platforms that gave you free coding courses or even medicine courses. So for instance, I think if you use Coursera edX, I learned how to code on a program called OR, because I heard that OR is really good for genomic processing and analysis. I did a course on that on edX. I also did a few courses on statistics in general, because the weird thing about RCSI is they don't really teach us or give us a module about statistics. And I know that in Canadian universities, most people learn how to do statistics. I personally just don't. But after learning how to do that, RCSI decided to do I think their research summer school went online. So what happened was there was an application form that opened at a certain day and a certain time. People were to send their resumes, but it have to be blinded, so there's no bias. You choose a project that you want to do, you send it out. I sent it out first round. It was super tight, because there was only 60 spots, and I think almost 200 people tried to apply the spots filled up in like 5 minutes. So I was lucky to get in, but I got rejected the first round, and they told me to apply for a different project because they thought that my resume was pretty well written. That's when I matched with one of my supervisors, who I am still to this day a really good friend, and he's a really, really amazing mentor for me. His name is Dr. Das, and he's part of the RCSI Department of Pharmacy and Biomolecular Science. I matched with his project. The first project that I did was about long coding RNA sequencing in colorectal cancer. My job was to use the program and the coding that I did to look through certain cancer depositories. So like public data sets, see which genes are essential for the CRISPR analysis that they were doing. So which ones are the ones that they should be looking at. So I had to do a bunch of coding, and I had to write, make heat maps about that based off of patient samples, like real patient samples from, public depositories. After that project, it went really well. I did a presentation on it. And then the following summer, I decided to, email them again, ask them if there's anything else for me. And that's why right now I think I'm right now, currently, I'm doing this methyl cybersort analysis using R, which is it's just a type of package that deconvolutes immune cells, looks at DNA methylation patterns, sees, if there's any
Genetics.
significant, yeah, like basically genetics but specifically for ulcerative colitis, and Crohn's disease. Yeah. So that's currently what I'm working on right now.
And I noticed that you were doing some work with heart research as well, like atrial fibrillation. I guess to treat and predict that condition. And I'm personally really passionate about heart research because like all of my topics that I guess, investigated so far have been related to the heart. So I'd love to hear more about that project.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So, yeah, the heart's really crazy. I really like the heart. That's why I was considering doing, cardiology specialization, but oncology as well, too, comes a close second. But that's why what happened was around, I think, March of 2021, my school sent an email about the George Washington University program, and they told us to apply for it. And I thought it was, I thought I'd give it a shot. I wanted to, do research in precision medicine. That was what the program was about. And I was super happy when I got the acceptance. It was just crazy. I was really excited to work with, his name is Dr. Vidal, and he's a really astounded Spanish researcher. He has, MD, PhD, all sorts of things. And he does a lot of precision medicine and translational medicine, which looks at the genomics and the genomic underpinning of certain conditions, translating that into real life treatments. One of the projects that I was matched with was atrial fibrillation, and the project that I was undergoing was in the field of oncocardiology. So there's a lot of literature that they've gained that talked about how the pro-inflammatory state and the autonomic dysfunction that causes the genesis of atrial fibrillation is also favorable to the genesis of metastasis. And that was quite interesting because that means a lot of patients that have atrial fibrillation have a risk of developing cancer. And we don't know what kind of cancer it is. We don't know how to survey it. We don't know what variables cause these patients to be more likely predisposed to that. So the lab, which is located, I think, in Valencia in Spain, they're currently doing blood tests to figure out if there's any variables that could point to that. So far, we've only looked at creatine, but the only explanation to that was a lot of the patients that did develop malignancies had impaired renal function. The pathology is still very unknown. I think very interesting, though, however, was a lot of there was, I think patients with atrial fibrillation are 4.91 times more likely to develop occult cancer. So I thought that was a very interesting finding. That's the current research that we're doing. And so, yeah, we're just hoping that we could actually find an explanation to what variables would help us keep atrial fibrillation patients under surveillance for cancers.
Oh, wow. That I've never heard that before. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult research because there's a lot of exclusions that we had to do. Like if a patient had a previous diagnosis of cancer, that's obviously going to skew the results. And we mainly looked at people that had the first episode of it, so not necessarily someone that has recurrent atrial fibrillation, just the first index period between 2010 to 2015. After the 2-year follow-up, did they develop a malignancy, right? So.
Yeah, no, just wishing you all the best with all of your research work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll definitely follow along with it.
Yes.
Have you published anything so far, or have you anything in draft right now?
The only publications that I currently have are they're undergoing revision. So the first one is about a research highlight that I wrote about CRISPR trials in sickle cell anemia, talking about how CRISPR could potentially reverse the genetic mutation that causes sickle cell red blood cells. The current, I think, for the atrial fibrillation paper, it's getting submitted. I'm not too sure because I think the correspondence author is considering publishing it in a Spanish journal. So that's still up to debate. But I'm presenting it at a conference in 2 months. So that's the only major things. With my ulcerative colitis research, That's still in the workings because there's a lot of data processing that had to be done. With school, it was kind of difficult to balance as well. But over the summer, I think I'm going to be doing some bench work and looking at the roles of like certain genes that might be responsible for regulating, inflammatory bowel diseases. So hopefully after that, I could potentially create a manuscript. But I think the only manuscripts that are in process are the ones that are as a side hustle. So not necessarily my major projects because they take some time. But for instance, like I'm creating a letter to editor. I'm not too sure if you know. I think you might know what that is, right? So yeah, so I'm just writing that about how COVID-19 has impacted cardiology treatment admissions in ICU in ICU. With Omicron also being written in.
Oh yeah, that's like a hot topic right now. So
yeah.
No, very, very neat. Sounds very exciting. So yeah, good success with all of that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
And I just wanted to touch on one more thing because you mentioned mental health earlier again, and I wanted to touch on the platform I guess you've created to bring awareness to students' mental health, which I'm sure has definitely been impacted by the pandemic. So the platform that you've created, what exactly does it entail, and I guess how big of a concern do you think mental health has been in the medical profession?
So the current platform is still under the workings. Primarily, I was going to use the winter break to work on it because I'm still trying to figure out and iron out, I guess, like the specific details of what I want on the on the website. But the reason for my motivation to create this was because mental health in medical school, whether it's in Canada or or internationally, is very underappreciated. I think a lot of the schools have tried their best to provide these resources to them. But I remember reading a research paper that out of the entire student population body, I think there was like around 1,000, only 16% of them felt as if there's adequate resources for mental health. And that really says a lot. That just shows that these students, even if there are mental health resources for them, they just don't know how to access them. They don't know where to start, or they're just too scared to even address it. Maybe they don't even know. Because for me personally, I never noticed that my mental health was getting really negatively affected by the pandemic until I started, taking time to think for myself outside of studying, and realizing that there's a lot of things that I'm not happy with because the pandemic really changed, our new normal. It's our new normal now, right? So my hope is that from this platform to give international medical graduates and any medical graduates from around the world alike a platform to just vent and explain and talk about their stories, because I felt like the best way to create rapport in terms of mental health isn't necessarily like crazy intervention, like having to go counseling. I feel like it has to do with them knowing that there's other people that are watching out for them. There's other people that are going through the same things. Yeah. Because I think because we're so disconnected from the social, the social pariah of everyone going out because of the pandemic. Personally, I just don't know what other people are going through. Like there are times where I'm sitting in my room thinking, is this my life? Am I the only one going through this? But as I talk to other people and hear stories, from elsewhere, I realize I'm not the only one. And so I think the main objective is to give people create blog posts for people to write about it. It would be very people oriented. So they just write about their experiences and potentially put on some resources that could direct them to mental health, how to handle their mental health, some study tips, how to live abroad, especially for international medical graduates, what to do during this free time. And I think there's just a lot of pointers that they should get. And yeah, I think that's the big thing. I think mental health is already very underappreciated in medical school, let alone because of the pandemic, it's just gotten worse. I think that's kind of the reason for my motivation to create this, just for my peers and for everyone else.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Yeah, all the best with, I guess, your endeavors with that. Yeah,
Thank
rooting for
you.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And like you were talking about how the pandemic has created this new normal, and I'm sure I guess a lot of students have been like struggling to manage their time, and with everything becoming, I guess, with the new normal coming about, it's definitely impacted a lot of people. So
Mhm.
how can people, I guess, remain resilient in a sense, and use that pandemic as a way to, I guess, like push themselves forward? Like
Mm,
how do you think students can do that? Maybe medical students even.
um, I think that's a very good question that even I myself might not have the answer for, because I've been really struggling with that question. How to, create resilience? I think it's a mindset, because a lot of students, put themselves in a negative bubble, thinking that, oh, there's
Mhm.
this I couldn't have done. I couldn't travel because of the pandemic. I couldn't see my family because of the pandemic. Maybe I couldn't celebrate my birthday. I wasn't able to celebrate my birthday because of the pandemic either. But
Oh,
I think it's a mindset that people have to understand, that the pandemic is just one challenge that we have to face in life. Life isn't very easy. It's not a straight path. There's definitely going to be bumps in it, right? And I think the advice I would give to students is to not necessarily look at the negatives, but take advantage of the time you have to create more opportunities for yourself, not necessarily waiting for these opportunities to come. Because I think as a result of this pandemic, the best thing that's happened for me so far, obviously I know that the pandemic is really bad. I've been reading up every day about the cases, the ICU admissions, and it's terrible. But I think from an intrinsic value and a point of view, because of the pandemic, I was able to take a lot of time for myself to discover who I am, to figure out what I want to do in the future, and to embark on any opportunities that are presented to me virtually. And I think it also gives you more time to fully try to connect with you know, technology is amazing, right? You can just call up your mom, even though she's miles away. That's what I did like a few minutes ago, right? And so
right.
it's nice, because you can just have time to see your friends even online, and appreciate that, this world is advanced to the point where we can still keep contact with our loved ones. I think it's just I think that's my take on it. Do you have anything else to add, Shub? I mean, it's a very
No, I'm just sitting here like
versatile
listening
question.
to you talk. I love that. Yeah, I loved your message. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I found like what you shared like similar to me as well. Like I've just been trying to, I guess, make the best out of it, like changing my mindset. So instead of like maybe something getting counseling or something, just maybe it was for the best, and then finding something
Mm.
else in a sort sense. Like for example, like back in grade 12, our Model UN conference got canceled or something.
Oh
It was
yeah.
supposed to be in person. So instead of, we just took that as an opportunity to maybe try out something new. We organized like a
Mm.
virtual conference, and I guess that had a lot of
Mhm.
success. And that was just one experience, like one example from what I'm talking about. Like there are so
Mhm.
many others where you just have to, I guess, adapt to the new situation and just try to make the best out of it. So
Yeah, exactly.
wholeheartedly agree with what you said before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. How was the virtual conference? Because I graduated in 2019, I never really had to deal with the virtual aspect of an MUN conference. How did
Fun.
that go?
Yeah, it was I guess just learning as you were going through it, maybe
Mm.
making like different changes to it. But we had an in-person conference, but we were also
Mm.
trying to organize one in our school district, just
Right.
everyone, yeah, in Grand Prairie. And so
Right.
since we weren't able to do that because schools went online, uh, myself and one of my other friends who were very involved in MUN, like all throughout high school, we just set up
Mm.
that virtual conference like over Zoom. And we actually had people all across, like from Canada and the US join up, like sign up
Really?
for it actually. Uh-huh.
Oh
So
wow.
instead of just, and that was one of the perks as well. Like instead of just having it local, we were able to have people from Canada and the US hop onto it because it was just like
Mm.
friends. Like we just shared it on our social media, and so that way
Mm.
people, like anyone who we knew, were able to sign up. And yeah, it went really well. I guess it wasn't the same as in person, like the energy and all that, like banging on the tables and all that. But yeah, it
Mm.
was still an experience of itself.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. Congratulations on the success of your conference.
Thank
I
you, thank
think
you.
I think that is true. I think even though everything did went virtual and virtual school is inevitably difficult, I think
Hmm.
virtual opportunities has enabled people all around the world to participate because
Like do
there's
something you
certain,
wouldn't be able to, right?
yeah, exactly, doing something
Um,
that you wouldn't be able to go to in person because it was required. And I think
mhm.
that speaks a lot about the technology that's evolving in our world currently.
No, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah. I didn't have anything else to touch on. I don't know if you wanted to talk about something else.
Um, I think
I
I'm
think
good for
we
now.
covered a lot today. It was
Yeah,
incredible.
I think we did. I think I can just end. I think like, maybe just one advice I can
Yeah, I
end
was going to
off.
ask you like any final
Oh,
words, like words of wisdom, advice that you'd like to leave with everyone today.
um, I think the best advice that I could give to anyone is that hard work doesn't necessarily mean success. Hard work basically gives you more opportunities that ultimately, based off of your definition of success, will lead to it. Because I think everything in life, whether you apply to medical school, getting through high school, getting through your bachelor's degree, getting research, creating this podcast, it all requires hard work. But that doesn't necessarily define your endpoint. I think when it comes to opportunities, this podcast potentially has the opportunity to reach more viewers, more people, more outstanding speakers, right? And that's the same for anything. Once you start research, once you start doing whatever you think fulfills your journey throughout, whether you want to become an engineer or a lawyer, a businessman or an artist even, it's the people that you meet along the way, the things that you learn throughout the process. That's what helps you achieve your goals and potentially your ambitions to succeed in the future. And so for me personally, I would not be here without the support of everyone around me. And I wouldn't be here as well too if I wasn't working hard because I have motivation. The motivation is the people that are counting on me to help them in the future. My parents, my significant other, my brothers even, right? And I think that's very important. You always need a certain support group of people that will help achieve your goals in the future. So that's the message I want to keep, is to keep working hard on whatever you're doing. Don't ever give up, because the sky is not the limit. Clearly everything's in space. There's so much in space. And most importantly, keep your loved ones and your connections and whoever means a lot to you close with you, especially during a time like this.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Thank you for sharing that really important message with everybody, Helen. Yeah, it
Thank
was
you
an
very
absolute
much.
pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me on this show. Such a pleasure to talk about everything on this podcast. And I really wish you luck for your future endeavors and the success of this podcast.
Thank you so much.
That's all for this month. Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you have questions or thoughts about this episode or just want to connect, I'd love to get an email from you at the email address that's listed in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time.